Sup, nerds? So we are nearly done with our first unit over British North America. So I just kind of want to give you my general wrap-up of this unit, just to highlight some of the important trends and themes that this unit establishes that we'll kind of see come back again throughout the course and throughout U.S. history in general. So first off, the unit gives us... let me rephrase that. The sources we've looked at, I think, did a good job of highlighting the reasons why people would come to America. How you had a number of people with a variety of different reasons wanting to come to British North America, whether it was because they wanted to just get rich, or they were fleeing from religious persecution, or they just wanted the opportunity for a better life than they would get back in Europe. But either way, there were a plethora of different reasons that people did ultimately go to these British colonies. And we've been looking at whether or not they were a land of opportunity. And as we've kind of been touching on in our discussions and in your assignments, it really was kind of a mixed bag. And we start to see the establishment of a number of trends and themes and major elements of American culture and just the United States in general, before the United States is even a thought. Like, no one's even thought of the United States as a concept before, and yet these factors, these trends, and these characteristics have already been established. On the one hand, you have the enduring cultural and economic trends of consumerism, this belief and desire to consume and be able to just buy things, and also kind of the principle that goes hand in hand with that, what I refer to as the Protestant work ethic, or Ben Franklin, how he referred to it as the mindset of God gives all things to industry. Taken together, it basically creates a culture of people who are willing to work really hard, so that way they can afford to buy nice things and ultimately have a higher standard of living than most of the other people in the world at this point in time. This period also establishes notable trends and experimentations with self-government. You have examples of like the House of Burgesses in Virginia and New England town meetings. Now, it's debatable how democratic these experiments were, but that will depend on your definition, your own personal definition of democracy, and where you draw the line between things like democracy or oligarchy or, things like that. Other trends I see as important is we also start to see the foundations being laid for class conflict that comes up frequently in not just U.S. history and human history in general, where while, yes, the average standard of living in the colonies is higher than the average standard of living in Europe, and while there is great economic diversity and there are a number of economic opportunities in the colonies, whether you want to start a business or get involved in trade, or whether or not you want to buy a plot of cheap land and basically just make a nice living for yourself as a farmer, and at least be able to provide for your family on a subsistence-oriented farm. There is still a dynamic of haves and have-nots, and we see that we start to see the origins of a trend where when you have or just referred to as the have-nots, when they reach a point when they feel so oppressed and that the system is so unjust, they rebel. And we see this with Bacon's Rebellion, where you have this large mass of indentured servants and poor landless whites who feel that they've essentially been screwed over by the planter governing elites, and they rise up and basically seek to overthrow and change that system. Does not work out that well, but we see the attempt to do that, and we see these attempts by just average regular people to address what they feel as oppression or injustice or inequity throughout American history. There are a bunch of examples throughout our history of these things happening. I mean, again, the American Revolution was fought because people felt the system was unjust and was basically not representing them or serving their interests. And then later on, again, when you have the labor movements, populism and progressivism, you have the civil rights movement, and even today, you start to see, well, not even start, you're seeing this push in today's political climate, where you have people on both sides, the right and the left, who feel that the political establishments of both parties are not adequately representing or reflecting their interests. And you see these challenges within the parties to try and force the party leadership to represent them. This is not a new thing to happen in American society or politics. Again, it's happened before where people have felt oppressed or abused, and they've taken steps to address the abuse. And we see this dating back to even before we were a country, with things like Bacon's Rebellion and the Stono Rebellion even. I mean, like the revolts against slavery. You could also argue that they fit into that trend. And things like the abolitionist movement, where you also have people who were fighting against their own oppression and injustice. And all of these things, they have their roots in this period where the U.S. wasn't even an idea yet. Nobody knew, nobody had any idea or was even considering that North America would ever one day not be a part of Great Britain. And this time period really does start planting the seeds that grow and develop throughout U.S. history. And again, that I've just named a few that stick out to me, that keep coming up over and over and over again. And I mean, I could go on for I don't know how long. I could make this a lengthy rambling diatribe on how most aspects of U.S. history date back to the colonial period, and it would get boring for everyone involved really quickly. But I guess my way to wrap this up, and just to kind of wrap this unit up, is it really does set the stage not just for the revolution, but for the development of the United States, and crucially, this uniquely American identity as a whole that comes later on. And whether or not that can include more positive traits, like, again, economic opportunity, or at least a belief and a desire to provide equal opportunity to people, this trend towards self-government and letting people or giving people a direct say in what their government does for them, and just the typical virtues of a strong work ethic and just I don't know, the family or something like that. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm losing steam fast. I'm tired. It's Friday afternoon. It's been a long week. But whether or not it's those more positive traits or some of the more negative traits, like racial inequality, economic inequality, and political exclusion, and just lack of representation from a political system. All of these trends date back to this period. And going forward, we'll see how they influence our development as a country and as a culture. Uh, and that I think is more significant than even just seeing how this period sets up for what comes next, which is the part that I think almost all of you said is the part you're interested in, at least with this first semester, with the American Revolution and the founding of the country. So let's finish this unit on a good note, and let's have a good week.